Hello and welcome to Straight Shooting with Dan and Joseph. Tune into this podcast to get the latest news on competitive shooting events and to learn how to become a better shooter. Remember to subscribe to the podcast and be sure to recommend it to all of your shooting friends. Hello, I'm Dan Kello along with Joseph Stacker and welcome to episode number 15 of Straight Shooting with Dan and Joseph. Be sure and check out our website, straightshootingwithdanandjoseph.com, and you can see our videos, listen to us, have all of our handouts, printouts, and whatnot, but be sure and go on there. Also, on our, wherever you're listening to this podcast, be sure to like us and share it with all your shooting friends. Today's episode, we have some score updates from ARA. We've got a preview of the upcoming ARA National Tournament in St. Louis coming up Labor Day weekend, as well as the PSL Shilling Challenge and the PSL Main Event. Big event closing out kind of the summer for rimfire bench rest. We're also going to go over in precision shots the ELEY Ammunition line of products, kind of go over each one of them that they offer, what to use them for, and so you can figure out what discipline you're shooting, what ammo you need to be using. All right, moving right along to the ARA updates. We've had a boatload of tournaments going on, and everybody's finally getting into the big swing of things. On the 15th in Ohio, now this is American Rimfire Association. You can go to AmericanRimfire.com, 22 long rifle bench rest. Lancaster Pistol and Rifle Club had a club tournament. George Donovan was the winner of it. Derek Brown in second, and Brian Gilliland was third. That was on the 15th. Over in Arkansas, at Rimfire Ridge, Fred Sears Place had their club tournament. Noah Johns won it. Bill Drummond second. Tony Brazil was in third. Missouri at the Bench Rest Rifle Club of St. Louis had their Missouri State Tournament. That's where we're about to go have the national tournament. On the unlimited side, Greg Monroe won. Second was Brian Brandt. Third was Richard Gorham. Second was, on the state tournament in Wisconsin, Sporter up at Van Dyne. Paul was running. Rod Carls was first. Donald Buchholz was second. Glenn Hogue, I'm sure I butchered those. I apologize, gentlemen, was third. Kansas Horton Sports Complex had their state tournament. Larry Landercasper won it. Bill Barron in second, and Jim Stensvad was third. The state tournament in the Sporter there in Missouri, Ralph Martin won it. Shane Seals was second, and third was Jim Scrivener. And in the Sporter side there in Arkansas at Rimfire Ridge on the 15th club tournament, John Douglas was first, Michael Howell was second, Nash Brown was third. And in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin State won by Ralph Van Horn, second John Prince, Scott Alberry was third place. Club tournament over in Caldwell County, Sportsman's Club in Kentucky, Frank Shook was your winner with Tad Earhart in second and Brandon Rome in third. In Nebraska, Robert Meade won the state tournament there. Margie Barron second, Larry Landercasper third. Modesto Rifle Club out in California had their club tournament with Giselle Pritchard as the winner, Joel Elmore in second, and Frederick Diebler in third. In Menominee Falls Rod and Gun Club, Sporter side or factory side, Rod Carls was your winner. Donald Buchholz was second, and Scott Bayer in third. And on the unlimited side, Ralph Van Horn won it, John Prince in second, and Ellie Carroll in third.
Might be Buckholes.
Buckholes? I apologize, sir, for getting that wrong. Open Grove out in California and Oxnard, California had their club tournament. On the factory side, Joe Friedrich won it. Andrea Rothram was second, and Artie Vod was third. Ohio Hilltop Bench Rest Rifles, George Donovan won it on the 22nd with Brian Gilliland in second and Keith Haggerty in third place. And then Green River over in Kentucky, Frank Shook won it, Greg Monroe in second, Robert Sansbury was third. In the factory division, Hilltop Bench Rest Rifles in Ohio, Joey Duncan was first, Gary Kill second, Arnie, I'm not even going to try that one. Arnie was third, I apologize, on that club tournament there. Pioneer Gun Club over in Missouri, right outside of Kansas City, had their tournament. And Elise Knott, junior shooter Elise Knott, won it with Glenn Townley in second and Jerry Kleppel in third. But coming up, we're going to the ARA National Tournament in St. Louis, at Wright City, actually. Bench Rest Rifle Club of St. Louis. Very nice range there, run by Scott Pieper. They were able to sell some land back in the 90s to where their old range was, to a riverboat casino that was coming in, and then they took that money, went outside of town, bought some land, and made one heck of a nice range.
I don't think I've been there yet.
Well, we're going to fix that. We are leaving out on Tuesday, and kind of, if you want to come on up to St. Louis, come by and see us. We're going to be up there, and starting on Thursday, leading up to Labor Day weekend, they're going to have practice all day. Range is going to be open at 9 o'clock in the morning until about 6 o'clock that evening, so people can practice and tune their guns in, try out new stuff. Friday, we will have the Professional Shooting League Shilling Challenge. Starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. Have 2 relays, 5 targets. They've got a really nice big 60 bench range. The benches are huge, and they're on 6-foot center, so there's all kinds of room. The firing line is massively long, but with this stuff going on with the COVID and everybody wanting to spread out, there's plenty of room at this place to spread out.
Give them some space.
Everybody's going to have their space. We'll start that. That should finish up 1:30, 2 o'clock, and then the range will be open for practice for anybody coming in for the PSL match as soon as we get that Shilling Challenge over with. And then we're going to close the range on Friday at 5 p.m. to get ready for the PSL main event, which is going to start at 6 p.m. Now, the PSL main event is the big money event for the year. We give away $10,000, give it to the first, second, and third place winners. In order to qualify for that, you just got to finish in the top 10 of any of the other PSL events. So you can finish in the top 10 of that Shilling Challenge and qualify for this. No entry fee if you qualify. We're just going to put them all side by side. Going to shoot 3 targets. First place gets $5,000, second place gets $3,000, and third place gets $2,000. And that'll start at 6 p.m. that night. Do 3 targets. Be done shooting by 7:30 probably. Get all that protests and everything hashed out and have that money handed out to those champions. Then Saturday morning, they'll start the ARA National Tournament. We'll have both unlimited and factory class starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. 3 relays. Get pre-registered on there who you want to be sharing with. And, excuse me, got choked there. We'll start that at 9 on Saturday. Shoot targets 1 through 5, and then be finished up 5:30 for that day. Then Sunday will be start at 8 o'clock, shoot targets 6, 7, and 8, and be finished and out of there probably by about 2 o'clock, 2:30. We'll also have 2 rifles we'll give away. We always do a project rifle, we call it, where we have different gunsmiths each year build best rimfire bench rest rifle that they can possibly build. This year, Jerry Stiller with Whole Shot Arms is building it. It's going to be on one of his 2500X actions. Got a dual trigger. It's going to be in a precision woodcraft stock. We've got a Citron scope going to go on top of it in a really nice Nanook case. It's going to be a fantastic rifle, beautiful looking rifle. And then also, because we've got factory class going now, Savage has donated a rifle that is perfectly legal in our factory class. Citron has donated the scope to go on top of it, so we'll have one of those to give away as well. So 2 chances. Must be present to win, must be an entrant into the national tournament to win. Everybody there will have a shot at that. We also do all of our awards for the previous year. All of our state champions and their A-line champion and aggregate champions will all receive their trophies and have the big awards presentation. So it's a good time. We got over 105 or so pre-registered to this point, so I was really thinking the numbers are going to be off this year, but so far they're off just a smidge, but really not much. We got a lot of people coming from all over the place. We're going to do everything we can to social distance. Like I say, it's a big 60-bench range. For the ARA Nationals, we're going to use every one of the 60, and that way people can get spread out. We don't necessarily have to share a bench with someone if you don't want to. but a lot of guys do share as we rotate equipment. So in bench rest, it does make, depending on what time of day and everything it is, there can be better places on the range to shoot than others. So, for these big matches, in order to keep it fair, then we'll rotate. So we're going to rotate twice. You're going to get a bench. You're going to shoot targets 1, 2, and 3. Then you're going to rotate 20 benches, shoot targets 4 and 5, and then that'll be the end of the day. And when you come back the next day, you'll start 20 benches off from there. So you'll shoot all across the range in 3 different positions just to help try to keep it fair for everyone that's there. We always have a good time. We're going to have some junior shooters come too. We always try to do everything we can to recognize the junior shooters at those and help get them going on along. But you hadn't been. I mean, it'll be somewhat like Triple Crown. I mean, that kind of crowd and everything. Little Kettlefoot that we have Triple Crown out is Kettlefoot to me for rimfire bench rest. Kettlefoot and St. Louis, I mean, they're set up to have big events. They've got a lot of benches, got areas set up to feed people for cleaning and whatnot. St. Louis also on that same range has a lot of centerfire. They've had the Centerfire World Championships for bench rest shooting there. They have national tournaments there for centerfire bench rest as well. So they've got a big, huge building behind where those guys set up to reload. So we've got tables set up there. People can get in there and stake up their little camp and have their cleaning stations and hang out, because it's because with 3 relays you'll come up and the way we do ours in bench rest. So if you're relay 1, you're going to come up, shoot target 1, and you come off. Now relay 2 comes up, shoots target 1, comes off. Relay 3 comes up, shoots target 1, and comes off. Then relay 1's back up for relay 2. So after you shoot, you got about an hour until you're going to shoot again. But so anyway, it gives a good time to visit with everybody, as well as get your gun clean, get everything situated and whatnot. And you got plenty of time to get ready and figure out where you're going to be on the next target and get everything done. It's a good time. It's going to be Labor Day weekend, starting on Thursday. It can be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Welcome to come out. Go to AmericanRimFire.com to get more information, or ProShootingLeague.com actually has a pre-registration where you can get on there and see all of that. Okay, moving right along to our precision shots, brought to you by Kello Shooting Sports, your one-stop shop for competition shooting needs. And our biggest thing that Joseph and I are going to be talking about today is the ELEY Ammunition, kind of the history of ELEY. ELEY has all kinds of ammunition that they have or make and offer. We are constantly getting questions on, well, which one do I need to do this, or to do long range, or if I want to do pistol shooting, which one do I need? So we kind of want to go over that a little bit and try to discuss a little bit about ELEY and their line of ammunition, everything that they have. ELEY is actually a really old company. Started in 1828 by brothers William and Charles ELEY. To this point, the ELEY has won more medals in the Olympic and World Cup events than all the other manufacturers combined. They've won 125 Olympic medals and 305 ISSF medals, which is International Shooting Sports Federation. That does all of the World Cup events. ELEY was used to win all those medals by those great competitors. At one time or another, they've made just about every caliber that you can think of, because of course they come through World War I and World War II, and so during that they made ammunition for the military, just like every other ammo company did. So with that, they made a lot of various calibers. There are also major ammunition developments from ELEY include they had a joint patent with Samuel Colt for a revolver cartridge in 1855.
Really?
And they were Britain's first centerfire cartridge in 1857. They helped development of the Boxer primer system and development of the first bottleneck rifle cartridge in 1869. And also the thin brass totally waterproof shot shell cartridge in 1882. So they have split off and sold off the shotgun division, which is now ELEY Hawk, which is still being made and is actually on the same property, but is a different company now than this ELEY group is now. During the American Civil War, ELEY was a major supplier of ammo to the Confederacy. And ELEY's first 22 LR rimfire cartridge was produced in 1860, but the current kind of rimfire domination began in 1951 with and that was when they very first introduced ELEY 10X. And they mainly brought that on to help the British teams do well in many of their events there, as well as in the Olympics and the World Cup event. Another big innovation that they had in the early 1980s was the ELEY priming system, which is EPS, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Was there's a huge misnomer out there about EPS, and most people will say, I want the EPS bullet, and they call the flat nose bullet that ELEY makes the EPS bullet.
Well, if it's a primer system, then
yeah, but nobody knows that, or a lot of people don't realize that EPS stands for priming system. They come out about the same time when ELEY come out with their patented flat nose bullet.
Okay.
And so a lot of people thought they were talking about the bullet.
They got lumped in. Yeah.
It got lumped in together. But what they were actually talking about was the ELEY priming system. And the ELEY priming system was revolutionary in that it's much, much safer. Rimfire cartridges, you have to get that primer in the rim. So the way, and many companies still do that this way. I mean, CCI, Remington, and a lot of them over in the U.S. side still manufacture this way. They drop the primer in there, and then they spin the case, and centrifugal force slings the primer out into the rim.
Like expanding it?
Well, no, I mean, it just slings it. I mean, if you spin something, everything's going to fly out on the edge with centrifugal force. The problem is when you do that, that primer is volatile. And so you have well, not pretty regular, but more often than you want, you have some explosions. And so it's dangerous. So anyway, basically it's spin prime, they call it. They drop it in the case. The case is spun at a very high speed, and it slings the primer out into the rim of it. ELEY developed the EPS, ELEY priming system, where they drop a powder in there that's not volatile, and they've got a rod that goes down into that case, and it basically just presses and squeezes the primer out into the rim. Then when that comes out, they do a drop of liquid that has all of their proprietary stuff in it, and that activates that primer and then kind of seals it off, and then now it's volatile. So it's a lot safer,
Right.
And because of that, ELEY has actually sold that technology to some other companies that actually use that, and kind of felt obligated just because it was so much safer, and they're in business. So if you can make a little money off of it, you got to make a little money off of it. But that's actually what EPS stands for, ELEY priming system. The flat nose bullet that ELEY uses on many of their cartridges, they just simply call that the flat nose bullet.
Yeah.
We have flat nose versus your typical round nose. Which round nose bullet, everybody knows that one. That's the one you've always
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything other than ELEY flat nose, basically.
Yes. Another thing that ELEY does to kind of differentiate some of their ammo, they've got two different lubricants that they have on the bullet, and the lubricant is on the bullet to help chambering of the round. So there's two types. They've got a beeswax tallow and a paraffin based, and the main difference is texture. Beeswax tallow produces a softer, thicker, and stickier lubricant as opposed to the paraffin based.
Well, it's also just that it's waxy. Like
Yes. It's what you think of the
thicker.
traditional wax.
Paraffin is oil based.
Yes.
So it's oily. I mean, it's waxy and then oily.
And as a result, that beeswax creates a much more accurate round because it's a softer wax, and it minimizes the effects of chambering. So as it's chambered, then it helps kind of get the bullet in there without deforming it. Through much testing and verification, ELEY has proven that out. And so they use that beeswax tallow on their ultimate competitive highest end ammunition, such as 10X and Match. It's designed for precision and for those competing at the highest levels who want the most accurate ammunition possible. But there's a couple downfalls that comes with that beeswax tallow. It's the greasiness of it. It'll potentially going to pick up more lint and debris. As a result, beeswax residue will slowly build up and dirty the rifle or pistol chamber slightly more, so it's important to have a good cleaning regimen. And a lot of times on a semi-automatic, those things will build up and it starts to give you trouble with function. And just having everything cycling. And it's not always, and it's not on every gun, but if you want 100% reliability and the ultimate in it, you probably don't want to run the beeswax tallow in a semi-automatic.
Right.
Now you can for short periods of time. You just got to take care of it and get that stuff cleaned off of there. So that's why they come out with the paraffin wax. And it's a much thinner, remains harder than the beeswax at any given temperature due to its higher melting point. It gives it a little drier feel and is less prone to picking up debris. The harder texture paraffin wax is more suited to the semi-auto firearms as it doesn't clog up the mechanism or give you any problems with the cycling of the bolt action. And so therefore they use the paraffin wax on anything that they're building for semi-automatic, such as the Force or the Action or our semi-auto bench rest Precision and the semi-auto bench rest Outlaw. So with that being said, if to kind of go down the line of what ELEY offers, I think most everybody, if you've heard of ELEY, you think 10X. And 10X is their ultimate that they've made, that they do everything they know to do to make sure that it's more accurate. Everything is slowed down more. It's made it a much slower process. They have multiple quality control checks along the way through, and with technology and everything, they've come up with ways to automate that. So it's not always just a human person visually looking, because when you do that for several hours, you're going to miss. With cameras and computers nowadays, they use a lot of that to inspect it. They also have one that has basically like a laser scan. So out of each lot of 10X that is made, they pull out a batch for quality control check. It's taken over to a machine and they laser scan it to actually measure it, because they're measuring to such a high resolution. It's extremely difficult to do that by hand. Because for one, if you're trying to measure a lead bullet that's got some type of wax on it, or if it's just lead and you try to put a micrometer on it, you're going to eventually, as you squeeze down on that, start to deform the lead. So a lot of things like that are better measured with a laser scan. They also will measure things such as what they call pull-out force. And they have a little robotic arm that comes in there and grabs the brass with one piece, grabs the bullet, and measures the force that it takes to pull the bullet out of the case. And they found that that's really critical for accuracy on this, that you need a consistent release force on all of those. If it's crimped too tight, if the case is crimped too tight, or maybe if the case is not perfectly round, which is another thing that scan does look at, how is that case actually truly round, or is it more oval shaped?
Right.
Which is going to give you trouble. It's really amazing to see that line work and how everything goes into it. And I mean, they control everything from temperature and humidity, and which a lot of people think about that, but it just blows my mind. I've been over there 3 times now to see some of the things that they think to measure. And I know we get a lot of people in 22 that like to measure themselves, whether they weigh them or measure the rim thickness or the concentricity. And there's a lot of people do it. After I went there and saw everything they measured, now they can't measure every single round like you're doing there one by one, but they measure so many. And actually they're getting to where a lot of the rounds are being measured, every one, now that they've got the computerized automation through the camera system, or at least visually inspected on there. But as far as doing that laser scan, you can't do that on each one. And you can't measure, if you measure the pull-out force, you ruin that round. You can't use it, can't stick the bullet back in there. But that's what they're going to do for 10X. So on that particular line, they've got a line that just makes, and they've got 6 machines that actually make the 10X. They are trying to make 10X, but they want to prove it, and so they actually have a proof range where they go and have 4 rifles shooting at 50 meters. They've got various rifles. For years and years, they used strictly on shoots. They now have added a couple other rifles on there in different barrels. Still use on shoots quite a bit as well, though. And they shoot. They proof each one of these lots through those rifles, and they know how well they should group. And based on the grouping in those rifles determines whether it goes into the red box 10X or the black box match.
Right.
So the one that's not quite to specs on the grouping goes into the black box match. Now, it still has a minimum bar. They don't just throw everything in there. If it looks like a shotgun, it's not going to go into the match. They also have a level below match called team, which if it doesn't make the quality control standards to the match level, then it's going to drop down to team. And then if it doesn't make it for team, then it's just going to get scrapped.
Right.
So they are measuring these. Now, these are all going to be that flat nose bullet profile that we talked about. They're all 40 grain lead bullets, and they're going to have that beeswax tallow. These are primarily going to be designed for single shot guns. So that's what you're going to see at this ARA Nationals PSL main event is everybody there that's doing ELEY is going to be either 10X or match.
Yep.
If you go to the Olympics, they're all going to be on 10X. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're going to be shooting the top of the line best. I mean, if you've been training your whole life and have one shot every 4 years, you want to make sure you've got the not only the most accurate and most consistent, because the last thing you want to do when you're up there on the line is have one go click and not bang. So 10X is the one that's going to be go-to. So again, these are all 40 grain flat nose bullets, beeswax tallow. If you're shooting 3 position or prone, these are the ultimate ones. If you're shooting NRL 22 and have a open class rifle where you've got a custom barrel on it that's been with a extra tight chamber, these are going to be the ones you're going to want. Now, if you're shooting a bone stock factory gun, you certainly can shoot this in them, and you are going to get the most consistent 22 ammunition made in the world. If you can see the difference in that is going to now be the struggle on it. And a lot of times, if someone has a factory rifle, a CZ457, you certainly can shoot 10X in it. But you're also going to get really good results from some of our other rounds, like our semi-auto bench rest precision and the outlaw, and some of our rounds, or some of ELEY's rounds that are not quite as expensive. And you're welcome to buy the 10X and try it, but at around $18, $19 a box of 50.
Not everybody's going to do that in their
right $400
rifle.
And that's not, I'm not trying to slight CZ457s or Tikka T1Xs because they are extremely accurate for what they are.
Well, it's all relative. If you have, I mean, top of the line means top of the line means top of the line.
Yes.
And so if you have a top of the line rifle, you're going to want top of the line ammo because those match up. If you're shooting a factory class rifle, for what it is, yeah, it may be top of the line, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get the most out of that with 10X necessarily. There's something else that may match up to that better.
Yes. Or
close enough to where you don't notice a big difference there.
And I like to say, people, if you're competing in the Indy 500,
yeah,
and you've got that kind of car, what kind of fuel are you going to put in it? I mean, you're going to put the top of the line best fuel in there, but if you've got a Camaro that you've restored, a 1968 Camaro that's very fast and a very nice car in its own right, it's not necessarily going to run the same fuel that
you
they're
don't
going
have
to run.
put race fuel in your Camaro.
Okay, so that's the 10X match and team. All of those. Just below that, now you're going to come down to club and target. Club and target. We primarily see club and target being used as an introduction into bolt action rifles, whether that's a single shot or a magazine fed. This is what club and target are going to be used by all of your 4-H groups, all of your Boy Scout groups, all of your kids starting off with 3-position and prone shooting. This is a good entry level ammunition that's going to be more accurate at
for
the
like
price
recreation
point.
use.
Yes, and as kind of a introduction into competition shooting sports. It's when bulk ammo is not good enough for you anymore, but you're not necessarily up to the level of a 10X or match quite yet. These are very good rounds, still work extremely well, and a lot of our guys using them in long range shooting even. If you're shooting a bone stock factory rifle, these are going to be very good rounds of ammo for you to use. When you're using these, you're more at the point to where you don't necessarily need to be spending $1,900 for a case of 10X. It would be more beneficial for you to take that $1,900 and buy 4 cases of target and get 20,000 rounds of practice rather than 5,000 rounds of practice.
And shoot a whole lot.
And just shoot. So these now, the club and the target are a 40 grain round nose, and they do use the paraffin based wax, and that's more from a price point standpoint. They're both subsonic, and I didn't mention that earlier, but on the 10X match and team, they're all going to be subsonic, anywhere from 1040 to 1080 feet per second. And that's going to be about the same ballpark for the club and the target. So if you're shooting a factory rifle, CZ457, Tikka T1X, Remington 40X, and you're starting off with the NRL 22 and just getting going in, or base class, or doing some long range, or if your kids want to shoot in 4-H and you just don't want to give them the cheapest bulk stuff you can find, club and target are going to be your round to go to. And one thing that you will notice when a lot of people say ELEY smells different, and I don't notice it now, but when I first started shooting, it does smell a little different, and that's just the combination of the powder and the propellant. But you will notice a little bit of difference. All right, now we're going to switch gears for just a second over onto the pistol side of things. So on the pistol side, they've got the top end 10X pistol, of course. Now they've differentiated these out a little bit depending on which discipline you're shooting, and these are largely going to be ISSF. When I say that, ISSF, International Shooting Sports Federation, is what does a lot of the World Cup events, and so they're going to have several different pistol type competitions. So you have a 40 grain round nose, and these again are round nose because a lot of times these are semi-automatic pistols. And the round nose, if you're looking for absolute 100% reliability, the round nose will feed better out of a magazine than that flat nose. Now, I've seen many guns out there that are semi-automatics that feed the flat nose just fine and don't have any issues. But when you're trying to get 10 of 10 for sure, the round nose is what you want to do on a semi-automatic or even on a semi-automatic. So they've got 10X pistol. It's a 40 grain round nose, and it does have the thicker beeswax tallow. Now, it's going to function fine in that semi-automatic, but these people are at a level where they're going to have a very serious cleaning regimen, and they're not going to be shooting a whole bunch of rounds before they go back to cleaning it. So they've got the function side of it beat down, and they're getting that beeswax tallow to help try to get the ultimate in accuracy. They also have what they call 10X slow pistol. You're going to have the same beeswax tallow. The main difference on it is still subsonic, but it's even slower yet. It's going to be down under 900 feet per second, as to where the 10X pistol is going to be, they've got just over 900 feet per second, so it's going to be a little bit slower than your regular 10X. Regular 10X is going to be 1040 to 1080. 10X pistol is going to be they got 906 to 942.
It's like 900 to 950.
Yeah. Basically, there you go, call it 900 to 950. 10x slow pistol is basically 860 to 900. Then one other round that they have is the rapid fire pistol, and that's an event ISSF and Olympics has rapid fire pistol event, and they have the different lubricant is what's going to be. It's going to be about 880 to 920, and they do a lot of firing off 5 rounds pretty quick in at shots. So they've got to be able to get 5 downrange in a hurry, but be ultimately accurate. And so that does have the paraffin-based wax. So that is the top end of the pistol products. Then, of course, they have the match level as well, black boxed, where they're going to drop down anything that doesn't quite make the standards to be 10x. So you've got the match pistol and the match slow pistol. And that's just it. The only reason is the change in the label color is how it performed in their particular rifles in the proof range. New product that we have out, or ELEY has out now, is the Bullseye pistol. Now this is going to be offered by Pardini USA here in the United States. So get a hold of Pardini. That's Pardini, and made specifically for a Bullseye competition. Pardini, the guys there, Vlad with Pardini USA, was instrumental in getting this thing over onto the market and really helping in the development of it. It's got the paraffin-based lube, and it's going to have a velocity here of 880 to 960 feet per second. And if you're shooting Bullseye pistol, this is going to be the round for you and what you want to do. It's going to work very well in any kind of semi-automatic pistol that you're going to use. And of course, Pardini's shooting Pardini pistols,
Right.
but any of the other semi-automatic pistols, Bullseye is going to work extremely well for you. All right, now kind of finish off the ultimate line. The other sport that's big in ISSF and more so in Europe than it is here in the U.S., but biathlon. So ELEY has 10x biathlon. We also have a little bit of match biathlon, and then they have club biathlon, which these are 40 grain. The 10x and the match biathlon is going to be flat nose. And the major difference between this is a little faster. It's over 1,100 feet per second, and is the lube on it. That beeswax tallow, when you get down below freezing, it's really hard and doesn't work very well in freezing temperatures. So this has a lube that's going to work, because when these folks are over there skiing and going around, a lot of times it's below zero, and they've got to have something that's going to function. And this has the lubricant to do that. It has a little faster velocity because they shoot a little bit longer distance, as well as the colder temperatures need a little faster velocity.
This looks awesome.
It's pretty cool. I mean, and if you're here in the States, I've seen some bench rest guys use this in the wintertime. A lot of the guys will shoot, especially up in like Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. They've got clubhouses where they actually just open up a window and shoot out the window. Or Wisconsin up in there. If you're doing that and it's still plenty cold, or if and actually I know I remember Jim Cannon and them talking about how cold it was when they do some of their NRL 22 stuff in Utah.
Like the skiing and all of it.
Oh yeah, if you want to see something that's impressive, because everybody knows how hard it is to shoot offhand, and these folks are doing it after
downhill skiing.
Well, in cross country, I mean, it's work, by golly. You go in there and you got to get your heart rate and your breathing under control. To me, that's the most impressive shooting sport there is.
And what they're shooting, they're takedown rifles, essentially. Like, they break them down, pack them in their backpack, then they take off. And
they've got it worked pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I have too seen them, which might be kind of fun. They do here in the States anyway, training during the summer, they rollerblade. So they've got the course that they go over, and you rollerblade with that thing on your back and then go over the hills and up and down, and they've got a paved area. And I actually saw the one, too, in Canada, Calgary. When I went up there to Korth Group, they showed me that, and they had all kinds of kids out there rollerblading with those things going around doing it.
That'd be cool.
So they've got the Biathlon Club, which is basically going to be, again, the introductory round that you're going to be using for practice and for when you're getting those kids going and don't need to be spending as much money but want a round that's more accurate than your average round, but not necessarily what you want to win when you're going for the gold medal, or use when you're going for the gold medal. So Biathlon Club. All right, moving right along now to what they're calling their recreational rimfire products. The is the Contact and Force. Now the Contact and Force, these are both going to have the paraffin-based wax, so that it's going to be the thinner lube, so it's going to work more in a semi-automatic. Now, if you're shooting Steel Challenge, this is what you want. This is what Steve Foster and Kurt Grimes and those world-class Steel Challenge guys use. Contact is the only difference between the two is Contact is subsonic and Force is going to be supersonic or high velocity. They're both 42 grain and they're both paraffin based wax. So if you've got like a 1911's been converted to a 22 and got a little bit heavier slide, then you probably want to go with the Force.
Yep.
That's what I run in the ones we shoot here. We've got a couple of them that Kurt Grimes actually built for us. Caspian frames with Taxol upper slides, and run Force just so it can make sure. Now that Contact is going to cycle many of them, but if you really need a little extra pump to cycle that slide. And then if you're shooting 1022, Volkortsen, any of the clone 1022s that are out there in the world, all the Taxol stuff, the Contact and the Force are going to be the ones you're going to want to try. Really good. The 42 grains is, they found that in a semi-automatic that the 42 grain gives just a little bit more resistance, therefore a little bit more back pressure to make the slide work a little bit better. That extra 2 grains, and so that's why they've gone with that 42 grain bullet. It makes the semi-automatic cycle a little bit better and a little bit more reliable. These are going to be down at a price point now of, depending on where you get it, somewhere around $40 to $50 per 500. So a reasonable price point, and very good and accurate ammunition, as well as going to be reliable when you're shooting Steel Challenge, and the last thing you need is one of them to get hung up.
Yep.
So check those out for Contact and Force. Also, for your semi-automatics, we mentioned briefly a while ago, we do have ELEY does have the semi-auto bench rest Precision. It's a 40 grain round nose with the beeswax. With the paraffin lube, and it's designed more for your bench rest semi-automatic, the 1022 clones, the kids Volkortsen, one that's going to have a little tighter chamber than your standard factory 1022.
Yeah. Mag-fed bench rest rifles.
Yes, because they work very good too out of, like you said, a mag-fed bench rest rifle. It also work very good for the NRL 22 guys. If you're shooting one of the Voodoos or Rim-X or CZs or any of those that are coming up out of a magazine, these are going to feed very reliably out of a magazine. They're not going to get that mechanism as junked up with the wax, and the semi-auto bench rest Precision is going to be about our most accurate round that you can find for that. The Outlaw has the 42 grain bullet. Now the one thing with the 42 grain, now they'll work in some of them that have a custom chamber in them, but if that chamber is really, really tight, the 42, it's not going to like the 42 grain. The 42 grain is a little bit longer. It's still 22 long rifle SAMI specs, but a lot of those really tight chambers are really pushing the specs, and the 40 grain is what you're going to want. If you have the more of a factory gun or a bigger chamber, then you're going to want to go with the semi-auto bench rest Outlaw, which is going to give you the 42 grain. Both of those are subsonic, and we do subsonic, especially if you're shooting long range or something. Want to do that, you want to stay subsonic. That way you ain't got to worry about it crossing that barrier between the muzzle and the target. So look at the semi-auto bench rest Precision and the semi-auto bench rest Outlaw. Now another one that's just come out is going to be your Action and Action Plus. That is essentially going to be really good for anybody who's using Contact and Force. These come in 500 bulk packs, and they're going to be less expensive. They're going to be more in the $35 range, 3250 range for 500, depending on where you get them from. So a little bit less expensive, but they're designed to run on a semi-automatic rifle. You've got Action and Action Plus. Only difference between the two is Action is subsonic, Action Plus is high velocity or supersonic. So that's going to put Action at about 1060 to 1080, and then Action Plus at 1150 to 1250 feet per second.
And they're both 42 grain.
Yes.
So on that, and that may be, this is just a question that I've never asked. It may be a stupid question. So you're talking about when they seat them, or the pull-out force.
Yep.
Is that what dictates the same? Because they're both 42 grain, but one is subsonic and one of them is high velocity. Is that what dictates that? Because you're building up more pressure, or
it's powder charge? It's got a little bit more propellant.
Okay.
Just a little bit higher powder charge. So this is what you have been running on those Thursday night semi-auto things at the Abilene Indoor Gun
If it's
Range,
not this, I was using Force because I really like Force.
Yep.
But it's selling like hotcakes, and so I don't want to use the stuff that we're selling, and so I started using Action because we had a ton of it. It's gone now, also. So I'm running out of stuff to use here because people keep buying it. But I've used both; they both work fine.
Yeah.
They both cycle with no issues, no problems at all.
And we shoot those on a little Thursday night league here we have fun with. Like I say, we've got two. They're Caspian frames with Taxol uppers, converted over to 22. Also have a Ruger Mark III, and we've got with a Taxol barrel
a Mark
on that.
III, a Mark IV. Both of those Caspians. Those Caspians are what Brian uses. I like that Smith & Wesson Victory.
Yep, use the Victory.
That's what I use, and that's not even. I mean, I'm impartial to the pistols themselves. What I'm using is strictly for the sight because that dot is smaller. That Viper or whatever it is, it's smaller than the Seymours that's on those Caspians. Okay. And so those things, they cover up like the whole target, and so it makes it a little harder. And
then on the rifle side at that event, you shoot part of it with a rifle and part of it with a pistol. We've got the Smith & Wesson M&P.
It's a 1522. And these all run. I haven't ran anything through it that hasn't cycled fine through the magazine, at least. I mean, every once in a while you'll get like a light strike or something, but that can be contributed to 20 different things before I even start looking at the ammo.
Once in a while.
Yeah.
And then we also run that on a 1022 Action. We put an aftermarket trigger in and an aftermarket barrel on with a little tighter chamber. We run those through, so we're running both Contact Force Action and Action Plus.
And on that shoot particularly, you're looking at function, not necessarily accuracy, because it's a steel shoot. I mean, it's kind of the same as Steel Challenge. You're not really worried a whole lot of where you're hitting that plate. You just need the hit. Right. And so the function is going to be like 10 to 4 over your accuracy.
Okay, so now any of these for the semi-auto you can certainly use in a bench rest. I mean, not a bench rest, in a bolt action gun, a magazine fed gun. You're not going to have any issues at all doing that. You can certainly. So if you're just looking for what's the cheapest stuff I can get that I want to shoot, but I can't stand it when they're not reliable, I go with the Action and the Action Plus. And honestly, it's been selling like crazy. Out of the Action Plus now. They should have some more here before too long, but that's where that's at now. And those come there in a bag with 500 rounds in a bag. And
and it may not be the right thing, but I've been telling people, and it's also because we're selling it, this is going to be your most reliable and most accurate, cheapest bulk ammo.
Yeah.
Like it's not the totally cheapest because there is stuff out there that's cheaper, but this is more reliable and it's more accurate.
Okay, so to kind of round it up too here on the 22 side from ELEY, they've used all this technology and everything to make a couple of hunting rounds. These are hollow points. They basically have taken their 40 grain round nose bullet and put a hollow point in it, and that wound up taking 2 grains out of it, so it's actually a 38 grain bullet. They've got a subsonic hollow point and a high velocity hollow point, and they both use the paraffin based wax. And essentially that's totally the difference between the two, is just purely in velocity. You're going to have subsonic, which if you're wanting to just shoot squirrels or pests or something, especially if you got a suppressed 22, that subsonic hollow is the way to go. You can't, when you shoot it through a suppressed semi-automatic gun,
all you hear is the action.
All you hear, that's right. All you hear that.
You hear the firing pin hit, and if it's a bolt action, that's all you hear. And if it's a 10-22, you hear that thing cycle, and that's about it.
Yep. We helped a guy do a gun on that CZ 457 bolt gun that he put a suppressor on. He's got a place in Ruidoso in the mountains, and he puts corn out for the deer and everything to come up, but the crows were coming in eating his corn. So he built this thing to sit out, and this is what you do when you're retired, and I can't wait to do it, and just sit out on your back porch and just waiting for crows to come in, and he just absolutely loves that thing. And because with it being suppressed in a bolt action, he's like, nobody hears nothing except a crow fall over. And then, but if you do need high velocity, maybe you need a little extra oomph to make the cycle work on a semi-automatic or something, then they do have the high velocity hollow point 38 grain with the paraffin wax. And that rounds out the hunting rounds. Now, new thing come out too within last year or so is ELEY is stretching out a little bit, going to be getting over into the USPSA side of things, and has started making 38 Super Comp that makes major power factor. It's called Action 38 Super Comp, 124 grain bullet. Basically, they're taking all their knowledge and know-how, they're wanting to stick with competition ammunition and trying to fill the void in there for open class and USPSA as well as IPSC, and something that makes major power factor. And you don't see a lot of this out there because it's pretty difficult to be able to make that major power factor and to still meet SAMI specs and for safety essentially.
Yeah.
And so
and that's from a manufacturer's standpoint.
yes,
because anybody can load their own. They're not worried about safety specs. They're
Right.
worried about what runs in their gun and if it's flat or not. That's all they're looking at. And so they're not selling that ammo. They're shooting what they're making. But from a manufacturing standpoint, if you're not worried about safety, then you need to be.
right. So this is USPSA certified.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to shoot this in a match, a major match, and I want to make sure without a doubt that I'm going to be major power factor, what do I got to do?
So USPSA has a whole list of ammo that they have pre-certified, and the makers of the ammo have to do that beforehand. And if you're going to run that, if you're not worried about it, then you don't have to do anything. You can for sure just buy it, show up to the match, run it. If it's a major match, they're going to have a chrono stage. So if you are worried about that, or maybe it's your first match ever shooting it and you don't know what it's going to chrono, you haven't tested it before, it's your first time shooting it, you for sure need to declare it, which all that means is you're taking advantage of the fact that this ammo has been pre-certified by USPSA and that it is certified by the organization itself. And so what you do is there's a declaration form. You fill it out with your information. You basically list the ammo. It has to be USPSA certified ammo for this to even be an option. But we are USPSA certified, so you fill out the declaration with your information, list what you're going to be shooting. So in this case, it would be ELEY 38 Super Comp Action. And then they'll take, it's either 8 or 10 rounds. It has to be prior to the match. So whether that's a week before, 2 days before, the day that you come in to check in, it has to be before the match starts. And so You give them a handful of ammo. I think it's 8 or 10 rounds. They take that, and then, like I said, if it's a major match, they have a chrono stage. And so at some point during the match, on one of the stages, they'll come and get another. It's usually 8 rounds, and you give them that. Typically, they take it out of a magazine that's on your belt. And then once you get to the chrono stage, it's kind of like you give it to them and then you forget about it until you get to the chrono stage. And then once you get there, if you have declared it, what they'll do is you make ready just like any other stage. They shoot it, they chrono it, they write down all the speeds. If you have pre-declared this ammo, they have that form there, and they will compare what you gave them before the match and what you gave them during the match. So what they grabbed earlier that day or the stage before, however long, as long as it's within, I think it's 10 power factor,
Yes.
it's totally fine, even if you don't meet power factor. So if you're shooting open, the minimum is 163.
65.
65. It's 63 for
60 for IPSC.
yeah, 60 for
160.
for IPSC, 165 for USPSA. Even if you're below that, as long as the declared ammo is within 10 points of the ammo that you gave them that day during the match, you're good to go. You still meet major power, which can be the difference between winning the match and going sub-major, and now you're shooting minor open, which is not the most fun thing to do.
Yeah.
And so if you know that it has chronoed fine in your gun, you've ran it before, it's not an issue, you don't have to declare it. If it's up for debate or you don't know 100% that you're going to meet major with your gun, because the barrels they can be completely different. If you got a ported barrel, the length of it comes into effect. Your muzzle brake, just
popple holes, how many you got them, how big they are. So many variations in the open market.
It all plays into an effect, and it all has an effect on what the speed is gonna be coming out of your gun. And so if you know that for sure, you don't have to declare it. It's still USPSA certified. We're at most of the major matches, especially if we're sponsoring them. So we can talk to you about that. If you don't know, you can for sure call us or email us if you have any questions. We can answer those, because I didn't realize how uncommon people didn't do this. Because I thought the same way initially, was okay, well, all we have to do is get it certified and anybody can use it and they're good to go. That is not how it works.
You still have to declare it.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is, if you're flying halfway across the country, go to a big match, just declare it and let them know as soon as before the match, or as soon as at the latest when you check in for the match.
Yep.
Definitely has to be before the match
That's
starts.
basically the last chance that you have.
Yes.
Because the next time you come up there is going to be to start the match, and it's going to be too late.
But print that off. They've got that on the USPSA website. You can email us, host@straightshootingwithdanandjoseph.com. We'll help you walk through that or send you over the form.
And we keep those declaration forms with us.
Yes.
So if you know we're going to be at the match, just come meet us sometime between the time you get there and when you check in. You can fill it out real quick. You can give them the ammo. Once you turn that in, and you're good to go. It covers you. It just makes sure that you're actually going to be safe shooting major if that's what you're declaring.
ELEY's also working on a 9mm major power factor ammo, so look for that coming in the near future. They've been working on that, trying to get it going, but with the state of affairs and the limitations on availability of components, it's seriously put a little damper on the 9mm side of things, but they are working on it.
Shortage of 2020.
That's right. So be looking for 9mm or major 9 coming out to you for open class USPSA and IPSC shooting. Boom. Well, that wraps up that segment covering all the ELEY ammunition. Again, you can email us with any questions that you have. Be sure and hit us on Instagram. Joseph's is PS Photog. Mine is Shooting Accuracy. And our one for the show is Straight Shooting with D&J. tag us with anything that you got, any
Mhm.
pictures you got of shooting this ammo, or if you've got questions and whatnot. Tune back in for our next episode when we'll be going over what happened at ARA Nationals and the PSL event, and we'll be looking forward to the USPSA in Arkansas,
Yep.
Area 3?
4.
4. One coming up in Van Buren, Arkansas
Yep.
in September. Getting ready for that, and then Joseph will be over there for that, as well as in October for the big nationals down in Florida.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Looking forward to that. So thank you for tuning in. Be sure and recommend it to all of our friends, and share us and like us on wherever you're listening to this podcast. Thank you.